Welcome back to the Admiral Consulting Group podcast. I'm your host, Mike Lordi, and today we're zeroing in on one of the most critical and often most chaotic parts of any mid-market business, warehousing and distribution. This is where accuracy, speed, and efficiency make or break the operation. And it's also where companies see some of the biggest gains when they move to Microsoft Dynamics Business Central. To break it all down, I'm joined by Dominick Zappia and Ben Lane of the Admiral team, who help companies modernize their warehouse processes every day. We're going to explore how Business Central improves inventory accuracy, streamlines receiving and picking, supports automation and mobility, and transforms shipping and fulfillment. Let's jump right in. Okay, Dominick, Ben, thank you again for joining me on this podcast.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, Mike.
How are you doing today?
I'm good.
All right, let's dive right into this. So for companies that are looking to get off legacy ERP systems and migrate into Business Central, what are the biggest warehouse inefficiencies you see holding them back?
Well, I think one of the things that we see often is the manual process. A lot of folks, they don't really truly have a warehouse management system in place. A lot of people don't understand that the ERP can provide them typically with warehouse management capabilities. So oftentimes they may have a system outside of the ERP that's managing the warehouse that doesn't speak directly to the ERP. So, the disconnected systems, that would be an example of a disconnected system where, the WMS, the shipping, the accounting, they're just not fully integrated. So they have poor visibility into inventory, into, what's in stock in the warehouse, what's running low in the warehouse. So I think the fact that incorporating your warehouse management capability within Business Central, within the ERP, will provide much greater visibility as to what products are moving, what products aren't moving. Also, the fact that it'll give them an understanding of when they need to do a reorder based on low stock, when stock gets low and things like that.
Like Dominick mentioned, a lot of manual effort or processes from receiving to picking and then manually posting it later, as well as, like you mentioned, it's hard to trust exactly what might be on hand. So we see a lot of reconciliation between what the inventory is in the GL versus what the inventory actually is.
Okay, good. Now, we're talking about warehouse and distribution, but how does Business Central help companies with multiple warehouses or distribution centers? How do they operate? How can they operate more efficiently?
Well, typically, clients either have their own warehouses or they have a DC. So typically the clients who have their own warehouses, they may have one warehouse location, they have multiple warehouse locations. With a product like Business Central, you can have multiple warehouse locations within the single ERP. So at any given time, folks on the operations side can go into the system and see what is in stock in each warehouse. They can also set up each warehouse individually, so the bins, the zones, the locations can be completely different between the warehouses, but more than likely they're going to want to have a standardized process across all the warehouses. But the opportunity is there if they wanted to have different processes within each warehouse. The clients that are using distribution centers, typically the distribution center will handle the warehouse management, but oftentimes they'll use EDI to communicate with the distribution center to let them know, when orders are coming in or when inventory is running low. So the communication between the DC and Business Central is done via EDI, and that's how they can communicate back and forth. So in that case, everything also is always in real time. So again, with BC, you have that capability of having multiple warehouse locations in each, for however you want to set that up.
What forecasting or planning tools inside Business Central help distributors maintain optimal stock levels across multiple sites?
Well, I want to go back, Mike, on the previous question, because I just want to make sure everyone's clear. Typically when we get calls from companies. Oftentimes they're using, let's say, a QuickBooks, a fishbowl for inventory, and a ShipStation for shipping. And typically these three systems don't necessarily talk to each other, or if they do, they're not always 100% in sync. So getting back to your last question on the warehouse, with the Microsoft Business Central, they could eliminate the need for a separate warehouse management system, a separate shipping system, which oftentimes clients require. So we could take multiple systems and put them into one system, and then all that information is consistent, and everyone's working from the same. They're all working from the same information. Everything's always in real time, because we often see, especially with e-commerce companies, they're using ShipStation, and ShipStation doesn't talk to the inventory system. The inventory system doesn't talk to the accounting system, and things are just all over the place. So I just wanted to bring that out a little more, because that's crucial. As an e-commerce company or distribution company grows, these things become very challenging for them, and oftentimes it's a loss of money on their end. But getting back to the question on the planning tools, demand forecasting Microsoft allows you the ability to do demand forecasting based on reorder points, min-max inventories, things of that nature, safety stock. Also, there are a number of plug-in tools that can be utilized for demand forecasting. So oftentimes clients are seasonal, so they're forecasting based on seasonality, which can be a challenge sometimes depending upon the success of the ski season or the summer season. So those demand forecasting tools use a lot of AI for doing that, and being able to know or let companies know what they should be buying based on previous sales, or even based on previous weather conditions or seasonality conditions over the last 5 years. So these are a lot of interesting things that you could do with forecasting, using algorithms and AI to accomplish that.
Okay, and shipping automation, what does that look like inside Business Central?
Well, you can certainly ship out of Business Central. That's not a problem. You could get your packing slip out of there. You can print your label. You can integrate with the FedEx or UPS. But what a lot of clients will do is they'll implement a shipping solution that sits inside of Business Central, and what that solution will do is it'll allow them to have direct communication with the carriers without having to do any type of integration or manual integration, or having someone having to re-enter data from the carrier system into the ERP. So oftentimes we use a product like Dynamic Ship, which allows for communication directly with the carrier. It'll print the shipping label. It'll bring all of the shipping information over to the invoice. It'll print the label. So it really streamlines the whole process with regards to getting product out the door. It'll incorporate the tracking number and send out an email to the customer saying your order was shipped. Here's the tracking number. So all of that can be done with a product like Dynamic Ship, which is again integrated, or it sits inside of Business Central, and really automates that shipping process. But on the other end, with the warehouse side, the other thing that we see a lot of clients doing is automating the warehouse with handheld devices. So you could set up your warehouse in Business Central. You set up your bins, your locations, and all that good stuff. But then oftentimes what they'll do is they'll incorporate the handheld device. And with the handheld device, they'll be able to scan when when inventories come in, when inventory is going out. So again, always in real time, you have your inventory levels, because just with the push of a button, that data is coming in or out of the system. So you don't have to rely on someone going into a spreadsheet and then taking the spreadsheet and going into the software to update things. So there's just a lot of capability with the automation of the warehouse when it comes to both handheld devices and on the shipping with shipping automation. And then with clients who do freight shopping, LTL freight shopping, the systems allow them to do that as well, to determine where they can get the best rates. So I think I answered your question way too long, Mike, but that's the extent.
Well, that's a lot of useful information there. I appreciate it. Ben, anything to add on that topic?
No, Dominick answered it so well. I don't even have to speak.
Okay, so now let's jump to the key performance indicators, the KPIs. So what KPIs improve the fastest after a Business Central warehouse implementation?
Yeah, to continue on what Dominic was just discussing in the last question, a lot of performance instrumentation. So it makes a lot of that automated process measurable, and you can measure the outcomes and determine where improvements could be made or changes could be made from there. You know, shipping cutoffs, carrier performance, dock to ship time, those all become measurable. And also there's many more KPIs even beyond that become available, you know, and a lot easier to generate from within Business Central, like your order cycle time, inventory accuracy, fill rate, all sorts of different metrics become easy to find and turn into visualized data that can lead to business decisions.
Yeah, inventory accuracy, again, is crucial because there's money there. I think oftentimes we run into clients where they have inventory sitting in the warehouse that they didn't even know they had, or it's very slow moving. Oftentimes, when you're going to buy something on Amazon, you see it's 50% off. You know that the inventory is just sitting in a warehouse somewhere, and no one's buying it, so let's discount it. So I think that's important. The inventory accuracy to stop. And then you have those fast moving products where oftentimes these products are coming from overseas or sitting on containers on the water for 6 weeks. So you really need to be able to manage that, those performance indicators, with the right tools.
So now let's think about the companies now, the manufacturers. How can companies prepare for the future with all this information now?
I think the first thing any company should do is really take a step back, and before implementing a new WMS or implementing an ERP, I think the first thing they need to understand is what are they looking to accomplish, or what are their challenges, because it's not a one size fits all. So typically what we like to do as a company for a client, let's say as an example, they're on QuickBooks. They're using, I use Fishbowl as an example. A lot of clients use that for inventory management. They're using ShipStation. So typically what we'll do is we'll come in and we'll go through an analysis with them to understand what their biggest challenges are. And then as far as, specifically to the warehouse, we'll see if there's any type of structure in the warehouse to begin with, even if it's a manual structure. Do you have bins? Do you have locations? Or if I go into the warehouse, I just see stuff all over the place, and no one, one person knows where it's all at. And if that person gets hit by the infamous bus, you're up a creek. So I think the first thing you have to start out with before you even introduce technology is to have your processes in place to
Yeah.
understand what your business processes are, then take those business processes and put them into the software, and then maybe the processes you want can even be more fine-tuned by utilizing, or they will be more fine-tuned by utilizing the software. But sometimes you don't know what you don't know, so until you map out those processes and say, hey, how can we do it in the software, you may find that doing it the way the software does is much more effective than how you want to do it. But you need to have a baseline. You can't just go in there and start configuring software without knowing what your baseline is.
Yeah, you put that foundation in and standardize all of your kind of core flows and processes, and that creates the foundation to then improve upon as things get faster or more efficient naturally just from moving to Business Central. It also creates a lot more time and opportunities to be able to really then step back again and analyze, okay, what else can be improved or automated, and continue going from there.
Yeah, Business Central is a really strong product for distribution companies as well as manufacturing companies, and a lot of manufacturing companies are also distribution companies. Some are not, but some are. So, but if you're like a pure, wholesale distributor, inventory and warehouse management are probably the two most crucial things in your business, because that's where your money's sitting, is in the inventory. So, within BC, you have, again, I'm being redundant, but you have the replenishment tools that are native, but then you also have a number of different apps that you could plug in that just bring that capability to the next level with regards to forecasting and planning. And then on the shipping side, you have that automation is there as well. So often what we find, we go into a client, there's two or three people in the warehouse that know everything, but it's all in their head. And then if they're not there anymore, everyone's scrambling. So, again, to have that definition of what your processes need to be and then incorporating them into the software is going to lead to more success.
All right, fantastic. One last question. So, what is Admiral doing now to, pretty much invest into this whole warehouse and the in Business Central? And if you could just elaborate a little bit on that, what we're doing internally.
Well, I think we are looking at a lot of things when we go into a client. So there are native WMS solutions that plug into Business Central that become part of the Business Central application as far as using handhelds and things like that. Larger facilities, much larger companies that have, warehouses that are hundreds of thousands of square feet. Oftentimes they may need a more robust WMS like a Corber, which we have clients using. And then with Corber, we'll integrate that with Business Central. So there's always a real time. So what we're doing when we go in to answer your question, Mike, we're not just again doing a one size fits all and saying, hey, this is the natural plugin for barcoding and scanning for WMS. We take a look and see, hey, where are your challenges? Do you need a WMS? Is it going to tell you what lane to go down to pick from the most efficiently based on how quickly you get that forklift around the warehouse? Or you just need something that's basically eliminating the manual data entry, you're just scanning it and bringing it in? Or do you need something that's going to tell you how to pick it, meaning what lanes to take in the warehouse? So we're not just going in with one solution. We're looking at the big picture and then coming back with multiple solutions for that. Everything sits in Business Central, but how it gets in there could be different from the handheld devices you're using or the system that you're using.
Okay, let's talk about AI. How is AI being utilized within warehouse automation and order fulfillment?
We've seen significant improvements and adoptions in AI, especially the last probably 6 months to a year. And within the order fulfillments and warehouse management, beyond kind of that foundation we discussed, once that's in place, then there's a lot more space for Copilot and AI to continue making those improvements with automation of workflows, whether it's notifications, even just being able to speak with it in plain language or natural language. So summarizing orders and highlighting exceptions, um, drafting customer or vendor communications, whether it's related to delays, substitutions, or even expediting a request based on the context within that kind of foundation platform, Business Central. It also accelerates building automations using Copilot as an assistant to kind of design and deploy the Power Automate approvals or alerts. Can also get more supervisor visibility without so many spreadsheets within BC. So quick views between a report and in Power BI as well as Copilot, quick view of open work by type or active sessions, as well as a workload breakdown. And then Copilot can build upon that and kind of give a narrative summary for faster decision making. And then when you go into the order fulfillment, it'll go order allocate to ship. Business Central has been developing and improving upon is what they call the sales order agent, which exists naturally or natively within Business Central, and that can automate the sales order processing from customer emails, at which stage it will identify the customer, clarify any details via that email, and it can even then go further and check your item availability, create the quote or order, and then also generate the relevant PDFs that go with that, and then track all of that within BC. So that makes things a lot faster. And what else becomes faster is getting a quick status. Copilot can summarize key records like your customer item or sales order into 3 to 5 bullets right within that fact box on the screen in Business Central. And that allows your users and teams to instantly see what matters and what may need attention. Lastly, it also eliminates kind of your manual keystroking on documents within your screens on BC. Copilot's now kind of in that background and making suggestions on autofill values on either cards or document pages based on the data that exists in BC. So it's kind of connecting those dots in the background and then making autofill suggestions based upon that. And it makes it a lot quicker to execute, and it also reduces entry errors.
Oh, fantastic.
I think too, Ben brings up a good point. I mean, Copilot is Microsoft's AI, but it could be utilized outside of the ERP. But the nice thing with Business Central is Microsoft has incorporated Copilot so deeply in Business Central that the functionality already exists without having to build it out. So, because Microsoft is heavily invested in Copilot, they're incorporating it very tightly within BC as they are with all their other productivity tools. So I think that's really important. It's not like you have to go out and build all these agents. They're building the agents for you and putting them into Business Central.
Yeah, like Dominic said, we really invest heavily in the kind of the beginning stages of that initial discovery, process review, and functional design document to really lay that foundation and outline what that foundation is going to be within Business Central, and that really paves the way for future improvements and automations, as well as AI being an easy kind of drop and fit solution or improvement. So even if the initial move to BC seems daunting, or that's a big project in the first place, getting that right and spending a lot of time on that makes it easy to then kind of start building an automation or AI or workflow improvement backlog type of thing. And then over time, as users get more familiar or with the system and comfortable and identify other areas of improvement, it's easy to then just, in a sense, turn Copilot on.
That's great. Can you share a real example of a warehouse transformation you've seen after a Business Central implementation or migration?
Yeah, I think of the ones that we have done recently, I think where you see the biggest ROI is on order accuracy. With the ones that we have done, oftentimes they were shipping the wrong product out because it wasn't necessarily, when someone's picking, they're not necessarily looking at the product. They're just going into the bin or whatever and pulling it out and shipping it. And, you experience that yourself personally when you get the wrong thing shipped to your house because it wasn't
I hate
picked
when that
properly.
happens. Yeah, personally, yeah. That's very annoying. Then you got to take it back, and we don't want that.
Right, and that's one of the biggest things is what we see with clients is their accuracy for order fulfillment has drastically increased, which saves tons of money with returns. I mean, oftentimes a lot of clients pick up the return cost. Some clients don't. But again, that's one area where we saw a tremendous amount of value. The other area is is employee turnover. I mean, if you have proper tools in place for folks in the warehouse to utilize, they're more apt to enjoy doing what they're doing than having to do everything manually or with spreadsheets. So, employee turnover becomes less when you have better automation in the warehouse.
You're not relying on tribal knowledge or anything like that.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think, I mentioned this earlier, and I can't mention it enough because there's no automation if your processes are broken. So again, your processes have to be in place before you implement automation.
Yep.
Because a lot of people think, oh, I'm just going to go in here and I'll plug this in and everyone's going to be happy. But it's not the case. Again, process first, automation, then automation. The other area where we've seen a lot of benefits to the warehouse automation is employees being able to pick more efficiently because some of the AI capability within the warehouse management tools tell them where to go and where to pick from. And that enables them to be more efficient and get the orders out more quickly. So, we see this anytime we implement the WMS system, there's many different areas where we see improvement. I'd say the number one thing is in order accuracy. And also in when goods come in, they're getting put in the right spots. They're getting put in the right bins, locations, because now you're not relying on just one person in their head to remember where this goes or where that goes. The system is telling them where it needs to go. And that's where, some of the big benefits come in when it comes to that. There's also more visibility when you have a WMS in place because now you could just go to one screen and you're not going to multiple spreadsheets. So there's just a lot of areas when we've implemented WMS as part of ERP. Those are just some of the areas where we see improvements being made, which at the end of the day results in a higher profit margin because now you're spending less money on the expense and more money on getting or getting you better value for your dollar by investing in that WMS.
Spending less time on those manual repetitive processes too, because they're automated within VC, and that saves quite a bit of money as well because they can devote that time to other things instead of spending 4 hours to send out a weekly report every Monday that's automatically there and available up to date every day and can even be set to auto send. So it opens up a lot of time for the users and employees as well.
Yeah, a lot of companies will use it like a DC, a distribution center, because they just think having their own warehouse is just too costly. But if you have the right automation within your own warehouse, you might find that managing it yourself with proper automation is more economical. I'm not saying it always is, but it's always something to consider if you're not a multinational you know company where if you just have one location or two locations, it could be manageable within the ERP with proper order, with the proper tools.
That's good. Now, you both, spoke to a lot of the, advantages and talking about warehouse teams. You may have touched on this already, but you have a warehouse, you have the warehouse team. What would you say were the biggest aha moments, for the warehouse teams once they saw Business Central in action?
Well, number one would be not having to go to multiple systems to do their job. Now they're doing everything from one system. So that is always something nice that they like when they see the system in place. And then not if somebody's out for the day or a week, they're not having to rely on somebody's notes on paper to make sure this, make sure that. It's just having the consistency of all the information in one system, and at any given time, anybody can go in there and look at it, is probably the biggest aha moment. Without, again, you brought up the tribal, everyone has their own little thing. Oh, if Joe's not here, we're really going to be screwed or whatever. But when he's not there, it's not a big deal anymore because now we have everything in one system and it's available to everybody to see in real time.
Yeah, and I see a lot of those aha moments. I also see a lot of the aha moments just with the reporting. We for a lot of customers deploy towards when as a go live's approaching, we deploy kind of a standard, pack of KPI reports or Power BI reports that we use and recommend to the customers. And even just going through that process of initially deploying those and showing them what's available or what's possible is a huge aha moment because a lot of those reports or KPIs, whether it's supplier scorecards or sales statistics,
from their legacy system, they had no idea that was even possible.
Well, yeah, I mean, this was great stuff, guys. A lot of aha moments, and you can never say aha moment enough in a podcast. So I want to thank you guys for joining me, Ben, Dominic. Appreciate the time, and let's keep navigating. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Dominic.